Hello and welcome. It's 10 a.m. on Thursday, the 10th of July. You're tuned into our mid-morning newscast here on ARIRANG TV. Let's take a look at what's making the headlines. President Park Geun-hye is meeting with the floor leaders of the ruling and opposition parties at the presidential office to urge them to pass proposed economic and safety-related bills in the wake of April's ferry disaster. Holding annual bilateral talks in Beijing, US and Chinese officials deliver assurances that they have areas of mutual interest and are seeking to look past their deepening differences over maritime security and cyber espionage. Plus, Argentina beats the Netherlands 4-2 on penalties after the two sides play out a scoreless 120 minutes. The South Americans will take on Germany in Sunday's final. Now, we have some news just coming in. Korea's central bank has left its key interest rate unchanged for the 14th straight month in July at 2.5%, and we'll bring you all the details on that in our next newscast at noon Korea time. President Park Geun-hye is preparing to sit down with the floor leaders and chief policymakers of Korea's two main political parties at the presidential office of Cheongwadae on this Thursday morning. Topping the agenda at the meeting will be pending parliamentary issues, including proposed bills on measures designed to address the safety shortcomings that were exposed in April's Sewol-ho ferry disaster, as well as anti-lobbying legislation. The president is also expected to lean on the parliament to pass bills aimed at boosting economic growth. The main opposition, New Politics Alliance for Democracy, is widely expected to use the opportunity to criticise the presidential office for its recent cabinet nominee choices. This morning's meeting, that starts in just under half an hour's time, will be the first between President Park and the leaders of both main political parties since she took office more than 1 year ago. Now, at Korea's National Assembly, lawmakers have given three of President Park Geun-hye's cabinet nominees the green light on Wednesday to assume their new roles. Those given the nod were Lee Byung-gi for National Intelligence Service Chief, Lee Gi-kwon for Minister of Employment and Labour, and Kim Hee-jung for Minister of Gender Equality and Family. The president tapped 8 nominees for various cabinet positions last month. All but one of them have gone through their hearings and are now awaiting confirmation. Culture Minister designate Jung Sung-gun, who is currently the CEO of ARIRANG TV and Radio, is appearing before lawmakers right now on this Thursday morning. The United States has confirmed North Korea fired 2 short-range ballistic missiles into the East Sea. The latest launches on Wednesday Korea time marks Pyongyang's 13th projectile launch this year alone. A US official said the firing violates numerous UN Security Council resolutions which ban the North from any ballistic missile activity. State Department spokesperson Jen Psaki also voiced Washington's concerns, saying such provocative acts heighten tension in the region and will not provide North Korea with the prosperity and security it claims to seek. The official urged Pyongyang to refrain from provocations and stick to its international obligations and commitments. Now, North Korea was included in the talks that are taking place right now between the top diplomats of the US and China. They're holding their second day of talks in Beijing on a wide range of issues, including North Korea, cybersecurity, maritime disputes, the Chinese currency and an investment treaty. The two sides opened the annual meeting by emphasizing the potential for cooperation, but issues that divide the world's two biggest economies reportedly dominated the discussions on the first day of the meeting on Wednesday. Hwang Sang-hee reports.
Chinese President Xi Jinping opened the annual China-US Strategic and Economic Dialogue on Wednesday by addressing the differences between their two countries. Stressing that confrontation would be a disaster, Xi reiterated calls for a new model relationship.
China-US confrontation to the two countries and the world would definitely be a disaster. Under these circumstances, we on both sides should look far into the distance, strengthen and persist on cooperation, and avoid confrontation.
The two-day talks in Beijing include discussions on China's currency, North Korea's nuclear program, and China's maritime disputes with its neighbors. Washington, which has been critical of Beijing's territorial claims, said it welcomes a peaceful emergence of China.
The United States does not seek to contain China. We welcome the emergence of a peaceful, stable, prosperous China.
But the two sides had clear differences on the establishment of the China-led Asia Infrastructure Investment Bank. Washington views it as Beijing's attempt to dominate the Asian currency market. This divide poses a problem to South Korea. It received a Chinese invitation to join the bank upon President Xi's visit to Seoul last week. With no clear answer given just yet, the matter is reportedly under discussion in South Korea, as the U.S. opposes its key ally taking part in any China-led project that could alter the political landscape in Northeast Asia. Hwang Sang-hee, ARIRANG News.
Now, South Korea's top diplomat has stressed that Japan must be transparent with the direction of its defense policy to reassure its neighbors. Foreign Minister Yoon Byung-se was speaking with visiting New Zealand Foreign Minister Murray McCully Wednesday afternoon, where he said Japan's recent military build-up is of grave concern to Korea. In response, McCully said New Zealand Prime Minister John Key also stressed the importance of Tokyo's transparency while it's in the process of shifting its defense policy when he met Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe earlier this week. The typhoon warning on Korea's southernmost resort island of Jeju has been lifted as Typhoon Noguri has made its way north towards Japan. Noguri is expected to make landfall on Kyushu this Thursday morning, but residents on Jeju will still see some strong winds and some rain for the rest of the morning. Now, waves of up to 8 meters have been reported, as you can see in the video there, along Korea's southern and western coasts. Now, the typhoon has weakened to a tropical storm, but officials in Japan say it could still bring heavy rain and violent winds to eastern Japan, including Tokyo. By Friday, Kyushu has already seen record amounts of rain over the past week, and warnings for floods, strong winds and landslides are already in effect.
That a team of South Korea.
Get connected to Korea and the world. Join us every weekday for the latest developments out of Korea, Asia, and beyond. On air, on your mobile, and online, we lead the way every day. ARIRANG News.
To try and resolve the crisis in Ukraine, the European Union also offers 15 billion. Now, in economic news, Korea's export prices fell for the fourth straight month in June on the strengthening local currency trend. The Bank of Korea said Thursday that the nation's export prices dropped 0.2% last month from a month ago, marking the lowest level in 6.5 years. The drop means local exporters are making less money when converting their export bills from dollars to won. Import prices, however, remained relatively flat in June due to a hike in oil prices, which offset the strong won trend. The Korean won appreciated by 0.5% against the greenback in June. Now, after Samsung Electronics posted far from impressive earnings for the second quarter earlier this week, it's pushing the Korean tech firm to find the next big thing to get it back on track. But analysts aren't really holding their breath for any turnaround by the third quarter at least. Our Kim Ji-yeon has the details.
The future of Samsung Electronics lies in the balance, and that was never more true than now. One after another, securities firms are lowering their projections for Samsung's third quarter after the company reported lower than expected earnings for the previous quarter. At least 26 securities firms in Seoul already say the smartphone maker will record an average of $8.5 billion in operating profit in the third quarter, which is a drop of more than 15% from last year's projections for the same period.
Samsung's slowdown in the second quarter is widely seen as a result of a slowdown brought on by a saturated market of high-end smartphones.
In response, Samsung is eyeing its next growth engine. One of these is the Internet of Things, where various smart devices are connected through the Internet using sensors on gadgets. As a manufacturer of electronic devices, Samsung does have a strength in this field. The company launched its smart home in April, which connects smart sensors in home appliances. The service makes home automation easy with a single app that connects and controls many home appliances, from TVs and mobile devices to internet-connected burglar alarms and light switches. Samsung is also working to promote its health and fitness gadgets. The Samsung Strategy and Innovation Center in Silicon Valley in the United States presented a service in May called Sami, a cloud platform that saves and analyzes collected data from the company's wearable devices, the Samsung Gear and the Gear Fit. Kim Jung, ARIRANG News.
The number of foreign residents living here in Korea has been climbing year after year after year to now where it's roughly 3 out of every 100 people living in the nation today are foreign nationals. But how is their quality of life compared to native Koreans? Our Yu Lian went out to the biggest multi-ethnic city near Seoul to find out.
This district, which sits at the heart of the industrial city of Ansan, is known as a borderless village. Take one glimpse down the street, and the signs in different languages give no indication that you're in Korea. Southeast Asian workers began arriving in the mid-1990s to seek their fortunes in local factories, giving birth to this bustling multicultural village. The city promotes itself as foreigner-friendly, but area residents say that's not necessarily the whole story.
So many people and merchants crowd the streets on the weekends that it takes 10 times longer to get anywhere. The city made the streets pretty, but there's nothing being done to take care of them.
Jung says the government, which designated Ansan as a multi-ethnic city, has now turned its back on the migrant population and refuses to face the reality of their living situation. To make matters worse, the local community service center says that foreigners are leaving trash bags in the streets, prompting loads of odor complaints.
The lack of government support has raised the concern that the area could eventually turn into a slum and become a place that the local Koreans avoid entirely.
With the continued inflow of foreign residents, 2/3 of the over 16,000 residents here are now non-Korean. The people that helped build this city deserve better support. Yu Lian, ARIRANG News.
Korean singer Psy's new song Hangover was the most viewed Korean music video on YouTube in the first half of this year. According to the video sharing website on Wednesday, Psy's tune, in which he teams up with legendary American rapper Snoop Dogg, was the most viewed music video in the K-pop genre. The video has racked up roughly 95 million views since its release on June 9th. The runner-up to Psy's Hangover was Girls' Generation's Mr. Mr, followed by EXO's Overdose. Psy's Gangnam Style music video, released almost 2 years ago now, has over 2 billion views on YouTube. Time now for a look through the international headlines we're following at this hour. For that, we turn to our Eunice Kim, standing by at the news centre. Good morning, Eunice.
Good morning, Mark.
Now, anger against Israel is rising as the number of Palestinians dying in the Gaza Strip in this once again spiralling Middle East conflict. The death toll is also soaring.
That's right, Mark. The death toll you mentioned of Palestinians being pounded on the ground now exceeds 60. Some media outlets saying more than 70 as Israel's army continued to bombard the Gaza Strip on the second day of its offensive. Palestinian militants also continue to shoot rockets deep into Israeli territory deeper north than ever before. So far, though, no Israeli casualties have been reported. Meanwhile, the Israeli intelligence minister warned a ground operation could be imminent to, quote, temporarily cut off the strengthening of this terror army. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said his army was ready for all possibilities, reiterating that Hamas will pay a heavy price for firing toward Israeli citizens, so certainly no easing of the these attacks in sight. Earlier, Western-backed Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas said what's happening was not a war between two armies and accused Israel of rejecting a proposed truce, adding that Palestinian factions in Gaza wanted to reach calm. Turning now to Iraq, bodies of 53 men were found in a mostly Shia town, raising ethnic and sectarian tensions in the ongoing battle for control of the historic state. The men were discovered in a field south of Baghdad, bound, blindfolded, and ridden with bullets. An investigation is underway to determine who they were and why they were killed. Meanwhile, in a fiery televised address, Iraqi Prime Minister Nouri al-Maliki accused the Kurdish minority of safeguarding ISIL militants, wreaking havoc in their quest to establish an Islamic State. He offered no evidence behind his claim that Kurdish-controlled Erbil province was becoming a rebel safe haven, further driving a wedge across ethnic lines despite pressure from the West to bridge the divisions to hold the country together. Protests, robbery, and vandalism in Brazil as anger boiled over its national team's humiliating World Cup defeat. The Brazilian team lost 1-7 to Germany in Wednesday's semi-final game. In reaction, demonstrators torched buses in neighborhoods inside and outside of Sao Paulo. Disappointed fans burned a Brazilian flag in an area usually packed by revelers. Police were on high alert and apprehended perpetrators, though there was no widespread rioting as was feared by some. The Korean Foreign Ministry has urged its citizens to avoid crowds and exercise caution. Both candidates have claimed victory in Indonesia's tight presidential election Wednesday, as quick counts by pollsters reported contradicting results. Jakarta Governor Joko Widodo claimed victory shortly after the polls closed, followed by his opponent, former Army General Prabowo Subianto, who about 1 hour later said he received the support and mandate from the people of Indonesia. The country's oldest think tank, CSIS, put Widodo in the lead with 52% to Subianto's 48%, but others had Subianto leading by 1 to 2 percentage points. Incumbent President Susilo Bambang Yudhoyono has urged calm until the official tally is announced after July 20th.
And a good Thursday morning to you all as we kick things off with the semifinal matchup between Argentina and the Netherlands, which kicked off earlier this morning. Of course, the winner headed to the final against Germany, so let's take a look at the highlights. Now, of course, no one expecting a 7-1 match in this one as both sides go neck and neck throughout the first half, with Argentina looking a bit more aggressive on the offense. Despite several scoring opportunities for both nations, they're tied 0-0 going into the second half, and even in the second half, both sides having a hard time scoring with the rain coming down. Now, of course, after 120 minutes of football ends in a still 0-0 draw. When the penalty shootout, it's Argentinian goalkeeper Sergio Romero to the rescue, saving the first and third kicks, helping Argentina advance to the final with a 4-2 penalty victory. And now staying with football, but back here in the nation, shortly after the KFA has announced that manager Hong Myung-bo will continue to lead the team, the manager has come out in a press conference just now, stating that he will resign from the post. Now, just a week after the KFA made their announcement, it looked as if manager Hong Myung-bo agreed to their decision to keep him as the national team head coach. But with the press conference taking place at 10 a.m., manager Hong made it clear that he will resign from his position amid the poor results from the Brazil World Cup and other off-the-pitch controversy involving the now former head coach. And now moving over to the LPGA this time, as South Korea's Park In-bi, despite losing her #1 ranking earlier this year, hopes to achieve a career Grand Slam after this weekend. Now, the third-ranked Park In-bi, who has previously won the Kraft Nabisco Championship, the LPGA Championship, and the U.S. Women's Open, just needs the British Women's Open title to achieve the career Grand Slam, which would be a first for an Asian golfer. Although she has been struggling this season, experts believe that if she can fix her putting, she has a chance over this weekend.
And now moving on to some Wednesday night's KBO action. The SK Wyverns cruised past the Kia Tigers 9-3 with the LG Twins winning at the bottom of the 10th inning 3-2 over the Tucson Bears, and Nexon crushes Hana once again 13-1. So with that said, let's take a look at the Samsung Lions take on the Lotte Giants. Of course, going into the game here, first inning, Hwang Jae-kyun singles to left and Son Ah-seop scores, and it's 1-0 Lotte. But Yamaiko Navarro leading off the bottom of the inning. There it goes to deep right center, and we're tied 1-1. But at the bottom of the second inning, man on third, Park Han-hee with a clutch RBI single, giving the Samsung Lions the 2-1 lead. But with Samsung up 5-1 in the ninth inning, Lotte starts rallying, starting off with Park Jong-yoon drilling a two-run shot to deep right field, and it's now 5-3. Next play, Lee Seung-hwa with an RBI single to right, and all of a sudden, it's 5-4. But Im Chang-yong able to get out of a jam here as he gets the save, as Samsung holds on to win this one 5-4. And now finishing things off with some midweek K-League Classic action, we have Pohang and Seoul play a scoreless draw with Incheon and Seongnam drawing 1-1. Jeonbuk and Jeju drew 1-1 as well. Now in the other matches, Jeonnam beat Gyeongnam 3-1 and Sangju defeated Busan 2-0. Meanwhile, let's take a look at the Suwon Samsung Blue Wings take on the Ulsan Hyundai Tigers. Now Suwon looking quite aggressive from the start as Roger Rodriguez da Silva scores the first goal of the match, giving Suwon the 1-0 lead. But shortly after, in the 25th, Santos make that 2-0 Suwon. Now Suwon up 2-0 going into the second half of the match. Lee Jae-won finds the back of the net for Ulsan, making it 2-1. But Kim Eun-sun helps Suwon run away with the lead here as he sends one past the goalkeeper with a brilliant header for a 3-1 lead. Now Ko Chang-hyun does score on a late penalty in the 68th minute, but Suwon does hold on to win this one 3-2, your final score. And that's going to wrap it up for me. This has been SJ. Have a great rest of the day and see you guys again for your sports needs.
Good morning. Well, the typhoon Noguri is traveling to Kagoshima in Kyushu, Japan this morning and should go through Japan and dissipate within 2 days. And the Korean peninsula will not be affected by Noguri no longer as the typhoon watches have been lifted in Jeju Island. But now we have to deal with scorching heat. In fact, the heat wave advisory have been issued in most inland regions, including here in Seoul, and it will get sunnier as the day goes on, and temperatures will be hovering over 30 degrees Celsius across the region. So please take good care of your health to avoid heat strokes and be careful of food poisoning. With that in mind, let's take a closer look at the readings for today. The high in Seoul will rise to 33, and Daegu and Gwangju will rise to 32 and 31, while Busan should see a high of 28 this afternoon. And for other regions, it looks like down on Jeju and Daejeon will see a high of 27 and 33 respectively. Dokdo will peak at 26, while Mount Kumgang tops out at 24. Well, please stay away from the heat today. And that's all for Korea. And here's the international weather for viewers around the world.
Well, that's all we have for now, but we'll be back with more news at noon Korea time. Until then, goodbye.